Welcome to this edition of The Advance. I'm Michael Quinn Sullivan. I have not been here
Yeah, I was going
in
to
a
say thank
while.
you for joining.
Yeah, like a guest. Sitting here with Brandon Waltens, senior editor of Texas Scorecard.
Mhm.
Brandon, we are at this moment, we are 43 days away
Wow.
from the from primary election day,
Mhm.
March 3rd. Um, it's so funny that it feels like right now, generally speaking, and I'm talking about going back, almost 20 years, there is nonstop stories, nonstop drama, nonstop attacks, all the stuff going on
Mhm.
in primaries. And this year, this might be the quietest primary, with a couple of obvious notable exceptions.
Yeah.
But the quietest primary we've seen, you've got a couple of notable races, obviously,
Mhm.
the open AG race, the U.S. Senate race, a couple races here and there. But for the most part, you don't have the just, all out, I guess, battle for the soul of the Republican Party
Yeah.
going on like we've had for, again, almost 20 years. Am I misreading this?
No, I think that especially when you contrast it, look, to just 2 years ago when we had the primaries in 2024, you had two big issues that were driving that, right? On one hand, you had Governor Greg Abbott out there. The Texas House had repeatedly failed to pass school choice. That had been
Right.
his top priority. And so he was out there endorsing, not just endorsing against incumbents, but campaigning constantly. I mean, he was on the trail doing numerous events for these challengers that were
Right.
challenging incumbent Republicans there.
And spending big money doing
And
so.
spending big money to do it. And at the same time, of course, you had Attorney General Ken Paxton on his retribution tour, if you will, right? After the House's impeachment of him.
I don't think they liked anyone calling it that. By the way.
Well,
But, yeah.
it's just kind of what it looks like, right?
Yeah.
But certainly going back and going and him campaigning against the people who supported his impeachment in the Texas House. And so you had two big, strong statewide, neither of which were on the ballot at that point, right?
Right.
And so they had a lot of time and a lot of money that they were throwing towards those legislative races. Fast forward to this year, Governor Abbott has his own race. Now, obviously, not really much in the way of a challenge on the primary side of things, but he's the Texas governor, maybe campaigning for something even bigger in the future, right? Some people have speculated. And so certainly wants his attention to be on his gubernatorial race right now as he's raking in what I think $105 million on the last
Right.
the last campaign finance report, which is wild. And then Attorney General Ken Paxton, of course, running for the Senate. And so a lot of his attention has been there on that campaign. And I think that this is a little bit of a natural progression too, with the fact that we had so many incumbents taken out during this last election 2 years ago that I think that the pendulum has swung, and I think a lot more attention this cycle is on those top of the ballot races, those statewide races, like the Senate race, but also like Attorney General, Agriculture Commissioner, Comptroller, some others.
All right. Let's talk about where we are seeing maybe little flashes of, again,
Mhm.
you've got 40 days. Early voting will start in what, 2.5 weeks, I guess. Where you are starting to see some words being spoken, right? You've got, for example, the Las Vegas Sands
Mhm.
spending money. Story just went up at texasscorecard.com by Paige Feld, kind of looking at the numbers.
Mhm.
But Las Vegas Sands, a company that does not operate in the United States, that operates almost exclusively in China, spending more money trying to shape the legislature, having gone in big and heavy and come in third place in a special election
Mhm.
back in November. Now they're trying their hand at taking out a couple of incumbents like Terry Leo Wilson and Mark DeRazio.
Yes, that was the most interesting thing, I think, from their report that we have in those recent campaign finance reports. We've got a lot of stories about those up at texasscorecard.com, but you look at what the Las Vegas, or the Texas Sands PAC, I should say, as their spending arm is called here in Texas. You look at the money they're spending, okay, they're giving to some incumbents, Republican, Democrats. We sort of expect that. The surprise has been, wow, they're actually spending money and endorsing against some incumbent Republicans. Like you mentioned, one of those is Mark DeRazio from San Antonio area, someone who's been a conservative member, who's been there several years. And then you have Terry Lee Wilson as well, who's being challenged in her race. And these are both of these members are anti-gambling, so it makes sense that they would be the targets of the Texas Sands group. What I think the more interesting question is these are two members. There are a lot of members that have voted against casinos. There are a lot of members who are obstacles to this, and it's interesting. Maybe we'll learn more. Maybe they'll come out and endorse against more incumbents, but and we'll see that on maybe a future report, campaign finance report. But for right now, those are the two that the casino lobby seems to really be targeting right now.
What I found fascinating, it's one thing. Okay, you're going to go after Terry Lou Wilson. You're going to go after Mark DeRosio, and they've supported various people. It's very fascinating to see that they're putting money behind State Senator Nathan Johnson. Definitionally, 30 out of 31 Texans won't know who he is, and actually it's a much bigger number than that because he's a Democrat state senator from Dallas. I'm sure he's a pleasant enough fellow, but he's running for attorney general. I'm not running for attorney general. You're not running for attorney general. You and I have about the same chance of being the next attorney general as Nathan Johnson does.
Yeah.
He's not going to be the attorney general, but yet you've got Las Vegas Sands putting cash to him. Very peculiar behavior from Vegas Sands.
Yes, very, very strange. And we'll see. Remember, there's Texas Sands, which is sort of the direct group that usually donates directly to candidates. They've also got a separate project heavily funded by Miriam Adelson, who's the head of Las Vegas Sands, called the Texas Defense Project, I think is what it is.
Yeah.
And they will do ads, they will do campaigning on behalf of different candidates. And so we'll see what candidates that group decides to support and oppose in the next few weeks.
All right, what else coming up?
Well, the Attorney General, speaking of Ken Paxton earlier, has come out with a massive, a very long 74-page opinion dealing with diversity, equity, and inclusion. It's essentially an opinion that says that really no company and especially no governmental entity should be engaging in DEI, not just as a matter of policy, but saying that it's actually unconstitutional. And this could have some big implications in Texas because while we've done a lot in the legislature, in our legislature here in Texas, to root out DEI from, say, universities and schools, and certain stories will tell you there's maybe some more work to be done on that front, right? But there's been an effort there. The state has, throughout a lot of its program, had what are called hubs, historically underutilized businesses, right? Basically giving preference to groups that are owned by minorities for state contracts and things like that. This is something that has gotten more and more attention. You saw the comptroller, for example, the acting comptroller, Kelly Hancock, when he was alerted to this, ended the comptroller's program with that. But this is something that could potentially, is in different areas of the state. And so this is a big opinion. Now, you step back and you look, why this opinion now? Well, it's interesting, Michael. This new opinion from Ken Paxton actually is in opposition to a previous attorney general opinion.
Who's the previous opinion that big?
And the previous attorney general that opinion came under for dealing with the historically underutilized businesses and all that was John Cornyn.
Right? I'm shocked.
Now, of course, Ken Paxton's running against John Cornyn in this primary. John Cornyn has already been out there vocally saying he's called this new opinion bogus, that basically calling it an in-kind campaign contribution. But whether it's the timing or whether it's the substance, I do think that it is something. This is an issue that people have been talking about for quite some time, which is getting rid of DEI in government. And if this opinion does anything to move Texas further towards that direction, I think that's going to make a lot of folks happy.
Well, and it feels like this is an example of, look, assume people's best motives when they do things, which isn't always accurate. But looking back 30 years ago, I think that a reasonable person could say, well, looking today, Cornyn's opinion at the time, we would now say it's wrong, but at the time, given circumstances, other things, something to it. But we can now agree that this is the wrong thing to do. It seems very strange for Senator Cornyn to be doubling down on a 30-plus-year-old AG opinion. Just take the L and move on. Otherwise, he's now having to defend in 2026 in a Republican primary, defending DEI. I mean, even the Democrats aren't really defending DEI anymore. Feels like a bad position for the senator.
Well, it's very strange, but this has been even a bad start, I would say, to 2026 for the incumbent senator. We've already been talking multiple times about how polling's not looking good for him, and then of course you have had some reports lately that President Donald Trump won't be wading into the race, looks like he won't be endorsing Senator Cornyn like he did 6 years ago. And so not exactly the news I think that Senator Cornyn wanted to hear.
Okay, last thing I want to get your take on. Over the weekend, it came out that Texans for Lawsuit Reform. We did a big documentary looking at TLR, its rise and its kind of tumble over the last few years. Did that now 2 years ago. TLR's had a lot of shakeup. So they've seen. No one's quite sure how real the shakeup is, but they've had a leadership change. Again, that's been said before, never really happened. But this weekend, word came out that several challengers to incumbents who had been promised money are now being told, "Nah, we're not going to be supporting you." And incumbents who were being challenged, told, "Hey, we're backing out." What do you make of this?
Well, it's interesting because TLR's PAC had already gone out and endorsed some of these challengers.
Right.
Okay, so people like Lisa McIntyre against Andy Hopper, who's a freshman representative. They endorsed against Mark DeRazio as well. They endorsed against Mark LaHood. Probably that's been their biggest race so far is against Mark LaHood. And so if this actually turns out to be true, and we'll see, right? We'll see if this is actually true. But if these reports are true, that shows at least maybe an awareness in the organization that they do have a problem right now, that there is a real issue with the perception of TLR as an anti-conservative group. And whenever they're endorsing against, frankly, you just look at these members I just listed, these are some of the most conservative members by any ranking you're going to look at is going to have these members toward the top. And the fact that they're going after those members, not a great look for the organization. And you also look at House leadership as well, Dustin Burrows, who, despite the fact that TLR has endorsed some of these candidates, these challengers, Dustin Burrows is out there campaigning with them. He's doing a fundraiser, just did a fundraiser with Mark LaHood, who, like I said, is TLR's top enemy. And so it seems like they have fewer and fewer friends in the House. And they realize right now with this leadership change, they probably need to change their strategy.
So like I said, we're 43 days out from the primary. Obviously, we're going to be seeing more interesting storylines develop. Folks can track all that at texasscorecard.com. Until then, have a great day. We look forward to seeing you out there. Thank you.